We good. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Market Talk, Sunday edition, of course. We are back. Sorry that I'm running a little bit behind, but what can I say? Uh, Time is not always on my side, right? How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's doing well. It is somewhat raining again out here, so it's kind of ruining things that I had scheduled, but whatever. It's slowed down right now, so that's all that matters. Hope, how's everybody's doing? Welcome on into the party, all right? So, we got a lot of things I want to cover today. It's actually way too much stuff, so I'm literally cutting out this part of this, that, and I didn't cover anything last show that I actually wanted to cover, which is embarrassing. It was very embarrassing. I didn't cover anything that I wanted to cover the last show because I was struggling too much. Okay, I was struggling too much with not remembering what I was doing as far as managing the show and the conversation. So I didn't cover anything. I had all kind of stuff saying, "Hey, we're gonna do this or that." It did not happen at all. Okay. Hey, Miss Doris, how you doing? Wind chime, how's everything? And so today, I'm hoping to continue to ease back into that process. And so I do want to cover some things that I think are important. I want to cover some things that are, in the back of our mind that we need to push to the forefront that I think that kind of continue to assist. I'm very big on small things, small habits, which will lead to bigger habits, if that kind of makes sense. You could argue what bigger means and whatnot, but little small implementations of things can lead to better outcomes and different outcomes in our day-to-day process. So I like little small things here or there. Small things trigger your thinking, your mindset, and all those things. And that's what I like to do because it helps me. And I believe things that help me might help other people. And I can only help so many people. Okay. That's all I can do. Okay. And shout out to the lovely, lovely Miss Doris for gifting a membership to the show. Because I guess Miss Doris realized I am back and I'm no longer sad about my team not winning the Super Bowl. I'm not sad no more. Okay. I'm happy again. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Miss Doris. I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much. But there's a lot of things we're going to cover. First thing I want to talk about actually is something old, which is still new, which is Bitcoin, right? I want to revisit a conversation from Warren Buffett that happened years ago. And I want to speak to the relevance of it now to me and why it holds positioning in the way I see things, okay? Hey, Adrian, Nicole, how you doing? And so that's one thing we want to cover. What else? I want to kind of dive into the conversation around the AI spend between the U.S. and its rivals, the biggest ones. And I want to touch on something that is connected to all of us, which is music and artists that are selling their music catalog, etc., and things like that. The perspective on it and what I think about it. Okay, well, that's what we're going to cover. We'll also cover I had some questions in the past that I remember people asked me about that probably wasn't explained well enough so that people could understand it. So if we have time, I will touch on that as well, okay? Because we all got limited time and space, okay? Now, first is first, we're going to touch on the Bitcoin thing, just because I think it's important as we talk about the transformation of where we're going in society as far as the economy, technology, and all those things, and currency, etc., and the role that it actually plays. And I've been seeing it on my feed a lot about people who are excited about the future of it and etc. and things like that. So that's what we're going to start with. Okay, so buckle in, buckle up. I also want to talk about the bond sale, right? So a couple companies are doing bond sales. Most notably is Google, right? They're doing 100-year bond sale. It's a mixture of 100-year bond with the UK and some other years with the bond sale. But it's interesting, and I want to discuss how I actually view that and the benefits of it, etc., and things like that. Okay, so let's start there with the Bitcoin process that Warren Buffett spoke about some years ago. Some years ago, he spoke about it, and I think it holds relevance to this day. At least for me, it does. We'll find out if it holds relevance for everybody else. Okay, let me see if I can remember what I'm doing. And remember, guys, this is just a second week back, so no judgment zone. Somebody put that in the chat. No judgment zone. I'm still very rusty, and I have not been able to dedicate the amount of time to not being rusty. So that's my fault. I'm still going to blame you, though. Yeah, spoken like a good soldier, I know. All right, let me adjust this here. There we go. Close this out. All right, let me pull Mr. Buffett on the screen here and see if I can structure this the way I need to do. We'll figure that out. And randomly, while I'm thinking about it, who is your favorite artist? I want y'all to answer that. Who's your favorite musician? And I know a lot of y'all going to get technical and you're going to say, are you talking about rapper or a singer? I said artist. You can define that as you see fit. Everybody already knows my favorite artist, so I won't say nothing. I won't say nothing because I'm going to get in trouble, okay? And I'm not going to get in trouble for nobody. Not today, okay? Not on Sunday. Not on Sunday, okay? Sub Eager, how are you? And so that's what I want to know who your favorite artist is, okay? Because we're going to sell a music catalog today. All right, let's get into the video. Warren Buffett talks about the explosion of crypto and Bitcoin in particular.
And here we have, if you're right about Bitcoin, something that's now lasted something along the lines of 15 years. And so I've been trying to understand if, in fact, you're right, and this is not just rat poison squared, but is not a thing, when it would be unveiled as not a thing.
That's predicting when speculation will end, or when the gambling instinct will go away, and when more people want to get out than are getting in. And I have no way of. If I thought I was good at that, I'd figure out a way to make a lot of money and different things. All I'm trying to do is buy good businesses. But the one thing I know is I didn't like chain letters when I was a kid. I thought, why in the world should I send along a chain letter the next day when I could start my own? I mean, I've seen people do stupid things all my life, and I empathize with that. I mean, people like to play the lottery. They're going to get 60 cents back on the dollar or whatever the number may be. And states, essentially, the numbers racket was something that you avoided. And then the government decided it was a source of revenue. And it's very hard to tell people that if they're going to put a tax on essentially a sure loser for society, for the gamblers on the lottery on the whole, but they're appealing to the gambling instinct and it spreads. I mean, people love the idea they're going to make more money tomorrow. And
so what essentially he's speaking to is he kind of ties the Bitcoin to a gambling aspect, right? This is 3 years ago this interview took place, right? And he's always been a lone skeptic, not lone, but one of the most notably skeptics of Bitcoin in general, in cryptos in general, but particularly that one. And he's speaking to how it has a connection to the human behavior of gambling, etc. And you can't really do much about that because people love the idea of being able to get rich tomorrow, which is very, very true. And then talked about how the government got involved and realized it was a source of revenue, meaning that they monetize your behavior, stuff that I talk about all the time, which is you identify something. If you can understand the human behavior of a business, you can then find a way that you can generate money from it. If you understand why people respond to things the way that they respond, you can then anticipate. You can then project and go, I know y'all won't stop lining up to get the Michael Jordan shoes. I know y'all won't do it. And even if y'all stop lining up, We'll just send them to your door because nobody wants to wait in line at a fast food place, but they do. What's that one that be having those long lines? Chick-fil-A? Yeah, I think it's Chick-fil-A, depending on where it's located. And if you just start to study enough human behaviors and what people have a tendency to lean towards, you'll start to say, Warren does not hate gold. It's not true. Hate is a strong word. He's just not the biggest. He doesn't believe it's the best vehicle for his capital. That's all that is, and he explains those reasonings why, which I tend to agree with in a lot of aspects.
Really drives them crazy if their next door neighbor is making a lot of money, not knowing what they're doing, and they're just sitting there, and their spouse is saying, why is that guy getting a second car, and why are we missing this whole thing? And the gambling instinct is so strong, and you had millions of people that were getting checks in the money and sitting home and finding out that they could have a roulette wheel in their house, and they had all the appeals of gambling that are used to get people to go to Las Vegas, and you can do it in your home, and they had money, and we've had an explosion of gambling essentially, and I like to bet on a football game if I'm sitting and watching. It makes it more interesting, but I don't think I want to make a living trying to bet against the house ever.
So he says that people see their neighbors and, like, oh, how they buy this or how they get that. I want it too, right? Once again, noticing the behavior, the FOMO type of thing, the fear of missing out, how momentum can lead to a lot of different things, right? So because of that, right, when you look at that, I look at that. I don't gamble. I'm a non-gambler in the sense of I don't play. I've never played the lottery. One time I did get, I think somebody probably maybe gifted a ticket or something in the sense of like, how like you're at work or you're amongst friends, you have a group and you say, oh, we should all put in on something. And I didn't necessarily participate in it, but somehow, I don't know, I think I got one of those tickets. But the crazy part is I never even checked to see if it won because I don't even know how to identify whether I won or not. I don't know how the Powerball numbers work and all those things. It's never been important to me because it's not something I ever believed in at all, right? And so listening to him speak on this and all those things, I heard this years back. Now, part of the bias is my fear base, right? Meaning, what am I afraid to do? What is my risk tolerance, right? And I have a very, very low risk tolerance when it comes to gambling, lotteries, casinos, all those things. And then my risk tolerance increase in other aspects of things, right? Things that I might have a little bit more influence on, so like maybe something competitive, me versus you. And I say, hey, I think I could beat you in this. And, I might be willing to wager that and stuff like that. So anything I can have a direct influence on, I'm more likely to increase my risk tolerance. And the thing that I have less of an influence on, I am even more less likely to have in my risk tolerance increase. So same thing, how I see wealth creators, controllers around us operate. People technically corporations own all these damn companies, right? But let's use Jeff Bezos as one of the biggest shareholders of Amazon, right? He has direct influence and control of a lot that goes on with that company. Hence, his risk tolerance to go out and spend $200 billion on AI and infrastructure and things like that is dramatically okay with him. Then I suppose if he wasn't on the board, if he didn't have direct influence on that company, it's harder to justify, right? And that's kind of how that's viewed there. And that's kind of how I view it, right? Now, there are a lot of people that are proponents of it. They say, oh, Warren doesn't know what he's talking about. He's too old. He's outdated. The difference between current standing CEOs versus founder CEOs, right? So I was watching the clip of the Airbnb CEO, and he was speaking about how founder CEOs tend to be more open-minded to changes and aggressive changes because they don't have that legacy mindset or the infrastructure of a company hasn't been around for so long that that the way that they think, they're just not willing to change. Now, I see these things all the time. Two things. I see older people that have just been passed by time, right? Where they're just so outdated. It doesn't make sense to not be on the internet. It doesn't make sense to not have some basis of technological understanding, right? Because if you look what happens to these people as they get older, they get left behind because they don't know how to sign on an app to put in a dispute, or they don't know, so they need a phone line. They're like, is there a phone number I can call? Because they only know how to talk to somebody. So there's a lot of limitations I see with older people. In contrast, younger people can take your phone. I'm sure if you got a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old kid, it'll blow your mind if you give them your phone, what they can do with your phone. They be on there, copy, paste, that they can basically create a video on your phone. They edit the video, upload it to YouTube, Twitch, all in about 2-3 minutes while you sitting there still pressing the keyboard one by one, right? So you can see the vast differences in the ability of older people versus younger people. And so I noticed those things. The next thing that I notice is that people on a day-to-day basis are always looking for ways to relieve the pressure of their circumstances. Okay, Sean, what's good? And so you have to understand, I felt that way before too. So I felt like, man, I just wish I could just instantly transform or just like teleport out of my circumstances, right? So that I didn't feel the pressure, I didn't feel the guilt, the shame, the uncertainty of my life. And I just wanted to say, if I wake up tomorrow, if I had $100 million, if I was a billionaire, I'd do this, or my life would be like this, right? I wanted that instant relief. What I found is that that's never going to happen. Nobody's going to come to save me. I'm not about to hit on a lottery ticket. And you can't win if you don't play. So I'm definitely not going to win. And you have to understand that there's J. Cole is one of my favorite artists, right? And this is controversial to a lot of people, but it's beauty in the struggle, right? And you have to get through it to see the beauty, right? Sometimes while you in route, it's harder to see it, but there's beauty in it when you endure something. It's beauty in it when you're challenged, you meet the challenge and you're able to overcome that particular challenge. There's growth. There's knowledge, okay? There's perspective. There's wisdom given in those scenarios, as opposed to if you never attempt, try, or quit. In all those circumstances, it's much harder. So I've observed these things, and I see it with everyday people. The people that play the lottery the most, in my experience, are usually people that are wishing to get out of their current circumstances with somebody else's assistance, and not much work or not much input of their own. They have no direct influence on the outcome of that. They just hoping that something happens to change it. So I just never believed that was going to happen. I got to fix my own life, right? So a lot of those things is just how I interpret that. And that's what the gambling aspect is to me. I also see it as the logic of me says, oh, well, it's the same as you, liking food, and, you want to try new foods every day. There is no, and we're talking like expensive foods and things like that, things that are not a requirement for you to sustain life. You just enjoy eating these foods, the pleasures of them, right? So not at the smallest term, but on the bigger term, right? I can understand somebody saying, why are you spending $150 on a steak? Now, I don't do that, but I do know people that I just love a good steak. That's my thing. That's my guilty pleasure. And so there's no long-term benefits to it, because once you consume it, it's gone, as far as that. It's not a requirement. You could eat something else, but you just like that. No different than you going to a table at the casino, rolling the dice, and you losing all your money and go, well, I lost, right? there's slight differences, but for the most part, I can understand the comparisons, right? And there are better comparisons. I'm just using quick examples, right? And so that's kind of how I view that aspect there when it comes to it, right? So continuing on, Mr. Buffett, please continue to expand on your reasonings to why you're not a fan of it.
I want to. If I were to get into gambling, I would want to own the roulette wheel and not be a roulette player. But we haven't done that. But people all the time. Well, actually, on my honeymoon in my first marriage, we're talking when I was 21, and we went through Las Vegas population of about 20,000, a bunch of fellows from Omaha and other places that bought the Flamingo after Bugsy Siegel met his maker sooner than he expected. And they welcomed me in because they all knew my Uncle Fred. And I looked at all these people who had flown thousands of miles to do something unintelligent as fast as they could. I mean, they couldn't, they thought the dice were hot or something like that. And I thought, I'm going to get rich in this country. I mean, if that's what people do, I can be smarter than that. I mean,
so he said he would rather own, instead of actually gambling, he would rather own the roulette table, right? The casinos are not shutting down. They're expanding on business. And so before the casinos were, let me build this nice, beautiful layout. Y'all come in. We got water for y'all, got drinks for y'all, whatever y'all want. We got people that'll show up here. We got celebrities / the influencers of that time period. We got them showing up. We got the lights, like we got it all. You want a limousine? Like however you want to get, like they had it all to get you indoors. Come on down. Like the Price is Right. Come on down. And so people would flood into there for the hopes of the hope, right? Think about it, right? The hope that they could win something, but not be mad if they didn't. Well, people do get mad and they've done some crazy things, but for the most part, it's hard to borrow $1 from. So, hey, man, you got $1 I can borrow? You could be holding $1 in your hand, looking at somebody like, nah, I ain't even got it, right? It's hard to get $1 out of somebody, right? But how quickly they will give it away for the hope, the faint, the most smallest percentage outcome of something, for just the glim of the possibility is amazing to me. We don't run numbers. We don't know the math of you actually winning. When you go when you go and shoot craps, you don't know the odds of you winning. 99% of people don't understand the mathematics or the odds of when they roll, the odds of them landing this. Now, there are some people who are mathematical geniuses, and they absolutely know all the numbers, the breakdown, etc. But we don't. If I say, hey, we all going to the casino today, I promise you, none of us actually know the actual numbers and odds of what we're doing to actually win. Now, what we could do is ask Gemini or ChatGPT what the answer is. That part is true, but I'm just saying, like, it's amazing how we hold so tight to that dollar and then give it up so quickly. Man, it's such a powerful thing when you understand that.
And, I've watched it ever since, and it's fascinating to me. But the gambling urge is so strong throughout the world, and now you've created the perfect condition for it, where states are legalizing gambling, and what it does to football games. I mean, particularly if you're just point shaving, which the guy gets offered $1 million, and it's like the White Sox were back in the 1920s. They did it for a few $100s, and you aren't even throwing the game. I mean, you're just making sure that the spread is met. You're not going to change the gambling instinct, but when the state has started sponsoring it, it's given a different there's a different climate than before.
And so with that, he kind of breaks it down. Now he goes on in another interview at one of his investor meetings, right? Which I obviously watched. And in that investor meeting, he talks about a comparison of farmland to Bitcoin, meaning if he was offered to purchase all of the farmland in America. All of it. For $25 billion, he'd do it in a heartbeat. Oh, yeah, I'm buying all the agriculture. He'd buy it in a heartbeat. But if he was offered to buy all of the Bitcoin for $25, he wouldn't do it. Now, we all will say he out of his mind, but let's just say he's in a position that we have to accept his answer. Just saying. He's in a position that we just have to accept his answer because he's not hoping to be saved tomorrow. He not in a need for money to help secure his family's future. You can't compromise him for more money. No, nothing. You cannot. So I'm going to accept his answer more than somebody that I believe can be compromised. You know what I'm saying? So my position still lies on that. It's not something that I understand heavy, and it's not something that I would get involved with. Just not a fan of it. Now, the technological aspect and all these things. Now, we're going to get a little expansive in the conversation in the sense of why, right? So I want to say this. Still to this day, right? Because that conversation happened 3 years ago with Warren Buffett, right? Still to this day, we still haven't figured out ultimately what is the use of Bitcoin, and it still hasn't been able to be applied to our daily life. You still can't buy nothing en masse. You still can't. It doesn't have the liquidity of the fluidness of a currency like the dollar. You can't move that. It's not gold. No matter what people, it's none of this stuff, and it's still up for debate. There's no concrete future around it to this day. But now, let's go ahead and play this idea out some, right? Because people believe there's a finite amount of Bitcoin that you can buy, and that's why the price keeps increasing, right? I would let you listen to his other interview at his investor meeting because he does go into a little bit more depth of it, right? And what he talks about is something that we all know, a productive asset versus a non-productive asset, right? And in the simplest way of explaining it, and I wish I had more time to put this together because I'm so crushed for time, that when you look at a productive asset, right, it's something that produces, right? So I'm just going to give you a simplistic term, right? Something that produces, right? Now, if you want to look at a rental property, you own the infrastructure, the land rights, the property, all that crap, and then you can then put a tenant in there, and they would be paying you money to use your asset. So your asset is producing income by allowing someone else the use of it, right? In another aspect, right? Let's just say McDonald's. They have a product. Right, the asset is the company. The production of the product that is then sold at scale is how they produce profits, right? A productive asset. I'm simplifying it for everybody. Now, when you look at a non-productive asset, right, one could make the argument that it's not an asset versus is. The outcome is the only way that you can actually monetize it or actually benefit from it in most cases is if somebody else wants it. Now, that's a very simplified way of explaining it, but if you want to exit out of your position in Bitcoin in general, you have to find someone else to purchase it. And basically, the only way that the value then continues to increase is if someone else thinks it's more valuable than it is. So if you buy something for $1, let's just say you buy a dollar bill. It's crazy, but let's say you do. And you say, hey, you want this dollar bill that I have? And you say, well, if you give me $1.01, I'll sell it to you. And someone goes, I'll take it. And now it has just increased in value by $1.01, and et cetera, et cetera. Right? I'm just simplifying. But essentially, the only way you're going to extract the value out of it is if somebody else wants to purchase it, because it doesn't produce anything, right? There's no now in some other assets they allow you to stake, right, which is like the way to describe that is like, it's like getting interest on your position and things like that, and you can allow somebody else to use your shares, and you can. So there are other ways they found ways to monetize it, but in the general sense, when you start to project long term, how do you incorporate this in societal structures? I don't see it, and the reason why is government. That's the most important thing you need to understand. The government. The government is not about to let you run and control something in their country. And now I'm going to give you the best way to perceive it, right? Let's say it becomes regulated, because they all calling for regulations, right? Which is all crazy, because somebody going to get left holding the bag, right? Let's say regulation happens, right? And somehow, some way, it becomes an actual currency. Let's just say it does, right? At that point, once it's regulated, right? Once it becomes an actual currency regulated by the government, what do you think the next thing is going to happen? I want you guys to think about that for a second before I explain it. In my opinion. Okay? Mike Lee was good. I just got to know. What do you think is going to happen? Right? So we got taxes in there. Now that's an interesting way of looking at it. But yes, they already taxing you on the gain that you get from the selling of this particular asset. They already do that on the small regulation aspect of it, because it already falls in ordinance of what the laws that they already have, regardless of what method you're using to generate profits, right? Let me just tell you, right? Because y'all thinking about it, what does it ultimately mean? I'm going to explain it. Just how I view it, right? There are much more defined pundits on this that I'm sure we could find that would probably combat it. I want you to understand this. Once the government gets involved, what's going to happen is that currency is going to be then tied to what? The same thing the U.S. currency is. It's going to be tied to debt, liability, and also human capital. Let me just clean that up so it sounds like, make it all fluid for you, right? That won't be able to no longer go up in value. I don't care if it's the amount of it is limited, and that's why there's only a finite amount of it, and then once it's all like done, it's not infinite like the dollar where you can just keep printing with the big. It's just there's a limited amount. Don't matter, because anything that the government is regulating that is a currency and whatnot goes down in value. So at that point, once the regulation occurs, you are now going to be holding a depreciating asset. Our dollar is not going up in value. So if you want, go ahead and look at the graph. Somebody you want to look at the US dollar, go back 70 years, 80, whatever year you want to look at it. I want you to look at how the value continues to be decreased, right? That's going to happen to this if it becomes regulated and controlled, which it ultimately would have to, because the government is not going to let anybody run rapid with their level of control over their society. It's not going to happen. It's going to be then tied to human capital, which then is tied to the $1 trillion of debt and to the work that we do. So with that being said, the value goes down. The dollar does not go up in value tied to human capital and all this thing. What makes you think that government regulation, new style currency is going to be any different? It's not even possible. And if it was, boy, what a genius move already. They probably would have discovered it themselves. But that's just how I look at it, guys. That's just how I look at it. It's not very likely that it won't become a depreciating item at that point. It's just not likely. It's going to go down. Just think about it. I'm just use your pure logic in your brain. Almost all of the currency that the U.S. government regulates and controls and operates, basically, tied to the human capital aspect of the debt and all that, down. The value of the dollar tied to us the people. And the debt that's attributed is saying the American people are going to produce this outcome. We believe that they're going to continue to produce this outpour and they're going to be et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's what's going to happen. I love to be wrong. But tell me how you can see it playing out any differently than that. Yeah, I know. So that's why I leave it alone. That's why I just leave it alone. I don't want to be the one carrying the bag at the end. Everybody playing. What's that little game we used to play? Was it duck? What was the game? It's like musical chairs. I forget exactly how to play. I'm a little old man now. Y'all see the grades coming in. But it's like running around. Not it. Gotcha. And then that's what's gonna happen. Somebody's gonna be left wearing the bag or holding the bag. And I don't know who that's gonna be, but it's not going to be me because I just have that perspective on it. Like, yeah, they're gonna depreciate it. It's just no way it could sustain, right? So that's how I just view that whole concept there. And that's part of the limited. Now, in the short term, oh my gosh. In the short term, there's an amazing video. There's two videos that Ray Dalio produced, right? And I already told you guys about the first one, which is how the economy machine works. I've already expressed that. It's a 30-minute video. It's animated for everybody who can't watch non-animated things and keep their attention span. He also has another one, right? And I forget what it's called, but I've watched it. And it actually is pertinent to now, right? Where you can say like what's going on with the military and war and all this stuff and the people versus and the change. Like, I forget the name of the video, but somebody can look it up. It's one of his top few videos that he's put out, and it's animated again for the people, but it actually kind of talks about a lot what I think is going on right now that's under a lot of the radar. And if you get a chance, you should watch it. But anyway, so that's just that whole breakdown of that. That's just I perceive it that way. Okay, the transfer somebody gonna get stuck with. Okay, now if you feel differently, if you believe something different gonna happen, I'll be here. Yeah, I'll be here to see. Okay, now and part of the reason I really want you guys to understand that, right? And who remembers my favorite book? And I'm going to tell you why it's relevant right now. This is what keep my mind this way, right? When I'm using my experience with the public, right? And I've been working with the public for a long time with people at all different levels, homeless, low class, middle class, upper middle class, high class, wealth, celebrity, like all that type of stuff, right? And I've been dealing with it for a long time, and I've got to experience interactions on the low end because it's just my experience, right? But I'm very like I pay attention to a lot of things, especially when it comes to money and the difference of class between people, right? It's not that I treat anybody differently and all that. There's a certain way you just treat people in general, right? But you understand there are differences in how value can be assigned to people and how the real world operates, right? So don't confuse those two. And what I just will see so much stuff, and I realize how young people don't understand old people in a lot of ways, and old people don't understand young people. And then that middle spot where you kind of like, yeah, I know what the youngins is saying, but the old heads know what they talking about, right? I'm kind of that blend, right? Where I'm like, oh, I see why this old head fell off. I see why they struggling, and I see why these youngins ain't really getting it. They ain't found that blend, right? And you have to be careful because you may very much become the same, the thing that you despise the most. You may. Shannon Sharp say a lot. He always talk about his grandparents, like, and it's this quote. I don't know the exact quote, but he says, "Be careful. Be careful." I don't know if it's be careful what you say or what you do or what you despise, because you may become the very thing you despise the most, right? And it's important because I've watched young people become the old people that they despise. Man, you old people ain't y'all not with the new wave. Y'all need to keep up with society. Y'all all stuck in your old ways. And then I watch those same young people become the old people that they despise. We are becoming potentially the same older people we despise growing up because we're not that good at technology either. Even though we kind of grew up in that world where we should be, these young kids is light years ahead of us when it comes to tech. And there's a lot of things where we kind of like, well, we don't want to touch that. Now, part of it's experience. Hey, we seen some people get played out on this and I ain't going to lose. But it's our lack of skills advancing there, right? And so one of the top quotes, right? One of the best quotes that's in the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, for my true subscribers and supporters that they know, is this quote here. And it's from the book. It says, but often does youth think that age knows only the wisdoms of days that are gone, and therefore profits not. But remember this, the sun that shines today is the sun that shone when thy father was born, and will still be shining when thy last grandchild shall pass into the darkness. Now, what that ultimately means, right, is you think they're an old fool. You think they don't know what they're talking about. So you're not really going to be able to capitalize off of this situation and circumstance because you don't understand. You looking at these people and not realizing the value that they actually have and the reasons for that they decision and why they're doing well. So you're not able to profit from it. You're not able to make money from it. And there's nothing new under the sun. Absolutely, right? It's the same old sun. It's the same. To me, it's the same old game. They just changed the players. They might change the name. Let me give you a short example. Facebook doesn't exist anymore. It's now known as Meta Platforms. They just did a name change. Young Berg is the hit maker. When he was Young Berg, his chain got snatched, and he like, yeah, you know, I can't rap no more because they said, you know, you got to be a certain type of rapper. Now in this day and age, oh my gosh, in this day and age, if Young Berg, that happened in Young Berg, he would actually probably still excel. We're in a different time frame. We just in a different time frame. He switched his name. He the hit maker now. He making more money than he was making when he was had top selling songs and all that. It's the same game. He just learned how to play it from a different perspective. He realized, dang, I can make more bread by getting behind the scenes. That was his ability to be flexible and navigate and go, oh, man, I ain't going to just put my head down and keep trying to rap to these people that don't want to hear me rap no more. He said, let me find a lane and get busy. And now he the hit maker. Shout out to him. You know, ain't no hatred to me, man. I want everybody to win. I want everybody to win. I know it won't happen, but I want everybody to win. They leave me alone. You know, my boy Sean is in Chicago. He know when he was in like if all these youngins get a job, hey man, less problems exist. Have you ever been around people that's working, making money? They are so less likely to bother you. It's usually the people that really ain't got nothing to focus on and see you as an opportunity. Not all cases, I'm just saying. Now, not in the case of no, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about battle rapper Geechee Gotti. Okay, I'm not going to talk about it because he was getting his money, but he fell back to his old ways. And I like Geechee Gotti. That boy, the rap battle, he is the man. He one of the top dogs. But I'm just saying, he in trouble right now. Okay, shout out to Mind Chaos Brew. Says XOXO Aaron, glad you still pushing. Yeah, I'm still around. They can't get rid of the kid, man. Yeah, they cannot get rid of me, man. I'm still around. Okay. But shout out to you. Thank you for supporting. I'm glad you're listening. I appreciate it. And I like to hear y'all thoughts. But I'm just telling you, more jobs to people, the more productive people are, this is just my experience. I didn't see people that go from looking at everybody else around them like, yo, we should get them. Hey, yo, they look like they, you know what I'm saying? to like, nah, man, we ain't on that now. We mature past it. They doing well. They ain't on that no more. So I've seen it to go from, like just want to take what everybody else has just because they're in a position to feel like it's cool to like, nah, that ain't right because they no longer in that positions. Sometimes it's circumstantial. And so just is what it is. But don't be a fool and think these old heads don't know what they doing. Don't be a fool and think only these old people just around because they survived. No, they know something. They know something. It takes 50 years to be 50 years old. You can't jump. You cannot bypass that process. No amount of technology can do it. There is nothing that exists that can make that easier to. You got to do 50 years, player. You can't make time go faster. You can't make time go slower. 50 years is 50 years. So I don't care if somebody else got 50 years on me in that 50 years. Yeah, they know something I don't know. They've experienced something I ain't experienced. Now, whether they were able to capitalize off it and all those things is very different. But I'm just telling you, it's very different. It's very different. So I study all the game, and Warren Buffett left me some game. He said, look here, young folk, don't be a fool. Don't be a fool. Now, he could be wrong. He could be wrong. Let me say something. Building 20K cars in a year is hard to compete with here. One robot building 20K. Yeah, don't compete. Yeah, in that aspect of that statement, build the robot then. To me, it's just pure logic to every answer. Warren says, I would rather be the roulette table. So be the person that builds the robot, programs the robot, the one that purchases the robot. Like you have to get into some role here. You got to get into some role here. Society is showing you this. You got to find a role there. Okay. Now, let me get in. What else do I want to touch? Let me check that off. Okay. We'll get into, the music catalog thing in just a second. I want to first jump into the AI spin between the U.S. And their rivals, that whatever you want to call their rivals. I don't know if I want to call it that, but I want to point out some things, consistent things, and how I tie all that into what we got going on here. So let me pull that up here. What time is it? 12:34. Okay, we're making good time. Even though time is not on our side. Okay.
More on this and what it means to investors and what it means about the race in these two countries, Deirdre.
Yes, it kind of comes down to CapEx and a number of things. I'll get into that. But as you said, the market just gave us a perfect example of the split on the U.S. side. Brokerages, they're selling off after a startup called Altruist launched an AI-powered tax planning tool. Again, this is not going to replace Schwab anytime soon, but it is a real product doing in minutes what advisors charge thousands of dollars for. And that is all the market needs right now to reprice an entire sector. Over the last few weeks, we've seen it happen in gaming, legal services. The software sector as a whole is getting decimated because every AI breakthrough here is being seen as a threat. So here's the paradox. In China, breakthroughs are being priced exactly the opposite, as an opportunity.
Before she continues on, I want to touch on this real quick. When they talk about advisors, wealth advisors being like under pressure, because Charles Schwab popped up, right? And their stock is under heavy pressure because of what was just released. And they were showing what can be done in a few minutes versus an advisor doing it and paying that person for advice. I've been telling y'all this. I've been telling y'all that a lot of financial advisors are not smarter than you. They may be educated in a field and have a degree, but they're not smarter than you. Half the time, they're not even richer than you until they become rich. When they get out of school, they settle with debt, and they go and get what are those things called? God damn it! they go on and they become a, what's the dang word I'm looking for? Don't you hate when that word is like just in the back of your mind is just essentially they go on to work for a company, right? There's a word, God, it's so eclipsing. And in that process, right, when they go on to work for a company, like, I don't know, let's just use a Charles Schwab, any investment firm, whatever, T. Rowe Price, whatever you want to call it, right? When they get to the company, their intellect, in most cases, is not the requirement for them to be your advisor. The requirement is to follow T. Rowe Price's roadmap, to follow Charles Schwab's roadmap. This is what Charles Schwab recommends. So when you go in there and you sit with an advisor, in most cases, right, they'll say, hey, this is, let's talk about your risk tolerance, what how much money you making, and what you're thinking, all this stuff. And you're talking to somebody who's probably way less richer than you. In a lot of cases, now if they've been with the company for 20, 30 years, they didn't ran up the bag off of other people's in fees and all that kind of stuff. But it's repetitive stuff. It's repetitive stuff. That's why I know a bunch of them. Now, they are smart and they've been in the industry a long time, so they made some money, but they literally going to make money off of advising you. That's just how the game works. I think, I forgot. I think I was talking to Eda Man one time about it, and we were just talking about advisors and stuff like that. He has a story he could share one day if he chooses to. But the point of it is, they can be replaced too. They can be replaced too, because a lot of the stuff they do is repetitive, right? Here's the slight nuance there. A lot of money and wealth is at the top with older clients. They are not going to be comfortable dealing with robots. I just hate to tell you, they're not going to do that. They're going to be like, no, you moving $20 million of my money. I'm coming to your office right now. They're not going to be like, oh, no, just log into this app and talk to your advisor bot. That ain't going to work for them. But it will happen to us. It's going to take the average person around 25 years of work to have accumulated a level of monies, wealth, etc., in which they could then be deemed worthy of an advisor. Now, everybody else who just, if you're able to run up a bag in 5 or 10 years and, go crazy, whatever the case is, then you may need an advisor faster than that. But the large majority of people will get their wealth at an older age, whether it's been passed down to you over time, or you inherit something, etc., etc. What you'll find is, why don't you get 1 gallon bottle of water? It's less entertaining that way. What you'll find is that they're not going to be rocking with the robots, but we will, because we're already conditioned. I want you to pay attention to the word conditioned. You'll be hearing this stuff. Condition. They're conditioning us now for future outcomes. So that's going to be our experience as we get older and older. That's going to be the outcome that we're going to have. It's not going to be optional, because the only way you can convince somebody to do something is you can show them how much money it can save them. And if you can show somebody that is older that, hey, if you use this robot instead, I can save you X amount of dollars, et cetera, maybe that will have some relevance, but I don't think in the short term it will. And so it's going to be the next generation that get hit with that. And I think that'll be us.
Image and video model from ByteDance just a few days ago. It actually fueled a rally in media and gaming stocks. Mm-hmm. A similar announcement from Google a week earlier led to a sell-off in gaming names here. Now, part of the reason why this may be is a huge delta in spending. American big tech is on track to spend well over $500 billion on the AI build-out this year, while China's top public tech companies, they're on track to spend just a fraction of that.
I want to talk about the AI spin build. If you see our spin, if you see their spin, what does that tell you? I just want you to just think for a second. Look at our spin. Look at their spin. What does it tell you? What do you see with that? Just let me know. Let me know what you see with that. When you look at 625 billion of US expected in contrast to 74 billion. What just comes to your mind? I'm gonna tell you what comes to my mind. The very first thing that comes to my mind is not efficiency. This is the first thing that comes to my mind, and this is not and then look, this going big bank take little bank. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Big bank take little bank. It's one of the reasons why when I look at a company, I want to see just how much flush they're with cash and how much access they have to capital. Now, how you obviously utilize your capital matters, okay? The return on the capital, all that stuff matters. But I'm like, dang, we spend 620, 74, we spending way more. Then I go to how much we spend on our military versus how much they spend on theirs. And I go, well, that's probably why we have the biggest, strongest, baddest military on the planet, because we spend like we trying to stay ahead. And they spending like they don't want to be number one. Now, I understand some people like, no, they're just more efficient. Let's play their game. What product do you think that the Chinese create that they're like, we want to be number one? It's not their thing. I'm not saying they're not coming for the number one spot, but it's not their thing. They're willing to duplicate people's process and give you knockoffs. Hey, y'all want these Michael Gordons? Yeah, we got these Michael Gordons for sale. It's the same thing. And they make it look the exact same. They're not trying to be number one. They just trying to be in the game. They're trying to be in the game. Hey, what's good? What's good? Salute. I appreciate you. Yeah, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for stopping by. They just trying to be in the game. And they ain't got to be number one. And what you need to understand about that is that's the same thing we get to do. I'm not trying to be number one. I'm just trying to be in the game. We normally on the outside looking in. We on the outside doors looking in. Hey, what they saying in there? Ear to the door. We can't get on the other side of the door. I'm just trying to get in the game. So what that means is, as long as I'm one of the top 1 through 5, I'm good. I ain't got to invest in the best company. I take number 2, 3, or 4, or 5. Would I would have liked to be number one? Absolutely. Would I like to go to the Olympics and get a gold medal? Absolutely. I take that bronze, though. You will be looking at me on TV talking about he only won bronze, though. But you ain't win nothing because you ain't in the game. I take that bronze. And they just showing you, hey, look, we going to just copy whatever y'all do. We just going to copy whatever y'all do. If you looked at the model that they put out, the DeepSeek model, right? Way back ago that caused all the market stirring. It didn't actually hold up, meaning it gave the illusion that it existed. So let me give you an example of how to put that in like realism, right? If you have a military, right, and the lights is dim, right, and they can see shadows. Let's say you have less soldiers, but you have a device that can duplicate shadows, right? And so when people got the binoculars and they looking, and you turn that device on, you go from 500 soldiers to, let's just say, 15,000 soldiers. So they looking like, oh my God, they got a lot of soldiers out there, but they can only see from a distance. But when you get up close on that thing, you go, hey, they ain't even real soldiers. That's just a shadow. It didn't hold up, but they just need to give the facade that they can compete. They just have to give hey, we competing though. And that's what I see here when I look at this spin. I can't guarantee that we'll win. but we gonna spend like we trying to be number one. We gonna compete like we trying to be number one all the time. And we ain't gonna win in everything, but when we do say we playing, when we hey, sub me in, hey, it's my time. We actually playing, and this is the game we really playing. And they're like, we gonna be around. Y'all might win because y'all always win these certain games, but we gonna be around. And I just see when I look at that gap, it's the same thing before I look at the military. It's just the same concept. We spend crazy on it, and we have to. What's going on around the world is a lot bigger than what's on the surface level of things, which would get us in trouble talking about it here. So that's just like how I looked at it. I'm like, dang, I don't see no efficiency there. It ain't got nothing to do with efficiency to me at all. It was good at all. Because there's always going to be players down the line. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. You can say those are top three, right? You ain't got to be number one. You just got to be in the game. It's money to be made for everybody because we have to facilitate competition. It's the one requirement of all nations around the world. Now they know America is when they're like, yeah, America. They kind of got their foot. They kind of got their knee on our neck. They got their knee on our necks right now, but we still could get to play though. So that's how you just want to interpret that right now. Now, at the end of the day, if you look at the products in which you're willing to utilize. Most of the products that we have, even though it may be made in a facility somewhere, it's represented by somebody else. And there's a reason for that. There's a big reason.
$70 billion. And yet they are still shipping competitive models and they're going global. Mm-hmm. So the market, Kelly, is asking a very simple question here. What if you don't need to spend that much? And we may be about to find out what happens because at least 5 major model releases from Chinese labs, they're expected before Lunar New Year, which is just a week away, February 17th. Everyone over in China is trying to have its own DeepSeek moment, and they're getting closer. They're catching up with their frontier models that our AI giants are building.
These new models that we hear about, do we know? I mean, I apologize if you said I missed it. Are they using NVIDIA chips? Are they definitely not? Are they using Huawei chips? Because it feels like NVIDIA can only be DeepSeeked if they're building models using kind of cheaper technology that is proprietary or that they don't need to, kind of pay up for NVIDIA for. I could see that collapsing once again, the AI trade. It seems like it's been more resilient to that lately.
We did a whole piece on this, a deep dive on YouTube. It's called our Tech Check Take on the Chinese hardware sort of playbook, and they're copying that DeepSeek playbook. So yes, everyone wants to use NVIDIA chips, even if they're older generations, but there was this model called GLM, Kelly, that they say was built entirely on Huawei chips. So it's not there yet, but they're getting closer and closer. So my guess is it's probably a mix. Yes, you need American advanced chips, but the Chinese government is putting everything behind their chip ambitions to try and catch up. So it's happening on the hardware front, it's happening on the model front. And Chinese New Year, it's like the CES of China for AI. Everyone wants to put out their new tech.
I had no idea, but I guess you can use it, have some time to experiment with it and play around with it and talk to each other about it, kind of like Bitcoin network effects years ago. Anyway, going back to what's happening with Schwab, Deirdre, tell us more about this new AI model that, yesterday it was like the insurance names. Before that, it was the legal space. Today, why is it on the brokers?
Because again, like I said, this startup called Altruis, right? It created sort of this tool that can automate what people pay thousands of dollars to financial advisors to do. And yes, there's a reason people like interacting with people, especially when it comes to financial services. But again, the point isn't that this startup is going to displace Schwab. It's that it shows that these tools are becoming easier to use. They're becoming easier for non-technical people to use. And that is just a threat. We don't know what the second and third order effects of that are, which is what you saw at Software at Large. Remember, we vibe coded our own Monday.com. It wasn't any good, but it showed that it's possible. And someone who's not me, who knows enterprise software super well and has been building it for years, could plausibly come out, same in financial services, and create a tool that's cheaper. There's a huge...
Yeah. So what it shows is that a lot of people's visits with advisors is not as beneficial for the consumer as we have been saying for years, as I've been telling you. Now, there are some times when it is, but I'll show you This thing is going to shake up the industry at some point. It's going to shake up the industry, and what it's going to ultimately do is reduce costs. It's going to reduce costs, and anything that reduces costs adds money to my bottom line. And you know we a bottom line country. That's just what's going on right now. So yeah, we're going to continue to pay close attention to the spend of the AI wars that's going on. As you know, I think it was 625 billion. Amazon is spending 200 billion. First of all, to be able to spend $200 billion is mind-blowing to me. No matter how many companies we study, and no matter how, there are companies that ain't even worth 200 billion. Matter of fact, I would actually say how many companies that are even the Fortune 500 even exceed $200 billion in market capitalization? It's not that many. So they spending a whole company in a year is wild. But I understand it, because at the end of the day, why are they spending this type of money? Let me see here. I saw a video earlier, but I'm not going to watch it right now. But I know I think the CEO of AWS was in a recent interview, and they were talking about cloud and all that kind of stuff. And AWS is, I believe AWS is probably number one ranked when it comes to cloud computing and all that stuff. I believe it's them, and then Azure is on there, or Azure, however you want to pronounce it. And Google's cloud infrastructure is getting up there and all that. So what I'm noticing is two things, right? Why are they spending? The question should be, why are they spending all this amount of money, and what are the impacts and effects of it? Well, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the impacts and effects of why they are spending all of this money, okay? And then we'll talk about the bond raised by Alphabet. And I think Disney did a bond raise as well, but they've done a bunch of those. And then we'll get into the catalog aspect as we break stuff down, right? Now, why, oh, why? Are they spending all of this money? This is why I believe they're spending this money. One, we watched a video last show where we talked about the landlords of the new game, meaning all these data centers, right? The place where to store data, and they have all of this stuff needs storage, right? Where we're going to place it, we need to be able to power it, and then we need to be able to store things. They want to be the landlords of this, so they have to do what? Build the infrastructure, aka the land in which we live on. Data is probably the most important thing that every single company is after. That's why our data is so important. That's why our behaviors is so important. That's why they always want to know where your GPS is. Can we know where you're standing at right now? Can we know your daily schedule, so we can say, get some coffee over here on your way to work, so we can just incorporate that ad there? Data. And we're data driven in every aspect. Anything that we can create that can produce an extraction of data, we will give to you for free. Somebody's talking about my water, so I'm gonna stop drinking some water. If you're wondering what I drink, I like to drink peach mango. All right, it's Body Armor in support of how good that Body Armor tastes. Peach mango is the only one that I drink. And it's the light version, by the way, so I don't only the light version. But the production of this is for these reasons. One, as they build the infrastructure, and look, you must listen to this. The infrastructure build is the new landlords. So with that, we have to drive out competition. You understand this? We have to drive out competition, meaning, how do we drive out competition? Making it unsustainable for them to compete. No, it's not an ad. I wish it was. Hey, if I get there, though, I'll let you know. So we have to make it an unsustainable environment for our competition to compete legally. So what does that mean? Hey, B-Love, how you doing? I missed you too. Thank you so much for being here to support me. What that means is this. For you to compete, you need two things. You need the technology to compete, you need the ingenuity to compete, and you need the talent to compete. If you can't afford to pay people what I can afford to pay them, I effectively remove that chess piece. So if you're a smaller company, and this is why a lot of startups fail, and this is why a lot of smaller companies, mom and pop shop, this is why they always get pushed out. This is why they close down. This is why you see businesses that ultimately close down. It's primarily because they were in an unsustainable environment. Costs went up. The cost went up way too much. We had to offset it with the cost of living, increasing wages for upset workers. And by the way, I employ a lot of you to study the history of wages and how we protest for them and how the battle that goes on for us to get it increased and what it ultimately does to other companies. And then you'll have a better understanding of this is not new. This is another battle of the have and have nots. The wealth disparity is so high right now. We're like, they did this before. We've always had this unbalanced scale of wealthy people versus non-wealthy people and us sustaining society together. And it's the wealthy people's job to make sure the people at the bottom stay relatively happy with the current system. And so they take, and they give as little as they possibly can until you reach a level of satisfaction. And then they slowly destroy our buying power with inflation by increasing cost of living, and everything we fought for, we just lost. But that's a whole nother battle for another day. But the point being is they push you out of business. They take all of your talent and they stack the deck. Call it a super team. Call it whatever you want. Call it a super team. Call it the all-star team, the Justice League. Call it whatever you want. But they raise the cost so high that you can't sustain. Now they are flush with money, so they can continue to pay until they put you out. You can go look up an old Amazon technique in which they utilize to put a diaper company out of business. You can go look it up. You can go look at how they literally sold at a loss to put another company out of business. You look it up. It's no different than what they're doing with this AI spin and infrastructure bill. It's the exact same thing that you're going to watch play out. And the reason why you need to watch it play out is this. We are going to see who the winners are. We are going to see who the winners are because they're the only one that's going to be able to sustain this. And what you'll find is the purchase of startups is to eliminate competition, all these other that we all know that. But what you'll find is there'll be a few winners, and we'll already know who they are. Okay. Now, let's get into this bond that was put up by Alphabet, and we'll talk about it. Where the relevancy of it exists, and what I think the deeper meaning to it ultimately becomes. Right. So let me pull it up here. I'm getting back in the groove of things, guys. Don't worry. All right. This is not like no T Grizzly first day out. This is my second week back. So I'm still a little rusty, but the mind still works. And ultimately, I don't even get to express to you guys half of the things that I be thinking about and saying. It's just so hard to put in a condensed type of conversation that I create here. So make sure you be some patience with me.
Here on set with us to answer that is Fundstrat economic strategist Hartika Singh. She's out with a note this week taking a look back at some of the other companies that have issued 100-year debt to see what that might forebode for, or just bode, I guess, for Alphabet and AI. Hartika, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So everyone's talking, what was it in 99? Motorola was the big one? Okay,
Yeah.
but widen the lens for us. How else should we be thinking about 100-year debt?
So thinking about just the age of Google and these magnificent...
You an economic strategist? Man, you know how those WNBA players looking different now? These economic strategists, these economists, these people is that they ain't like the old ones. They dip something new in the water. They got something new in the water. Oak says, this is not the real Aaron. No, this AI. You know what's so funny? I have thought about trying to turn myself into an AI character. I have thought about trying to turn myself into like an AI little, but I've thought about that. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. You know, that's a very, because you remember the UK guy, right? What's his dang name? The UK guy that just go, you know, he done sold his likeness and all that for like $800 million. So I don't see why I can't. I don't see why I can't. So you own something. But let's get back to this economic strategist as she breaks down the 100-year bond that was put out there by Alphabet.
7 companies, they're not that old. They're pretty young. You know, Google itself is 28 years old, and all the Magnificent 7 companies that we've had, they were created in the last 50 years. And then to put that into perspective, AI itself is 3 years old, and Google's just taking a huge bet on it with this $100 billion bond offering. Putting into perspective, other century bond offerings were done by companies that were, you could say, boomers in their age, right?
Really? Is that right? Was Motorola like a 60-year-old company?
Yeah. And
so do you generally say this from the point of view of it's better? I'm trying to pick an analogy that doesn't sound, to try to, take the medicine for hair regrowth, right? I mean, is it better for them to chase this idea that this CapEx will make them young again? Is that how it actually ends up working or not?
That's a big question on my mind right now, especially because let's take, for example, Disney. When they've had their Century Bond offering, they were about 70 years old. And even back then, there were all these concerns about the entertainment industry, especially back then when there were many questions about how it was going to...
That was in 93, by the way. When I think that was in 93 when Disney did that bond. And it was a really, really good deal, by the way. A really, really smart deal for them. If you go back and you look at the debt that they gave out, it was like it was a good deal for them, but it comparable to what has transpired over time. But anyways, what do you guys think about this bond sale for 100 years?
Vibe itself. People in the Wall Street Journal, when they gave quotes, they said, "Oh, this is kind of a silly idea. This is a crazy thing. Look at what happened to Coney Island, for example." Oh. So I think it's just a matter of, can you as a company keep disrupting the space you're in and reinvent yourself, because it's 100 years. It's a really long time.
Yeah.
Well, I think Google.
That's crazy. It says Alphabet is up.
And reinvent yourself.
68% in the 1 year. Y'all remember I was on here and I said, I think I'm gonna buy some Alphabet stock. Y'all remember I told y'all that? I did, huh? I told you, I said I'm about to buy it. I said that. Now, some of y'all was like, yeah, that makes sense. I know what you're thinking. I should have bought more. Absolutely. But you can only run so many different portfolios at a time. I mean, you can only do it. But the point being is, what a great, great company Google is. What a great, great company. If your strategy is to make a lot of money, boy, oh boy, you could pick a lot less good companies. You could.
Because it's 100 years. It's a really long time.
It's a long time.
Well, I think Google, from a diversification perspective, they continue to be like their own little Berkshire Hathaway. So it is interesting they're coming to market, but the subscription, the oversubscription, it really talks about the appetite in a time when should investors be concerned with these 100-year bonds, which are remarkable. Maybe we live to 100 with all the robots about to help us, Kelly. But what we see is the appetite for this. We're about to have SpaceX potentially this year, which is going to be the largest IPO of all time. Meanwhile, you're seeing 25 billion, 30 billion from Amazon, from Oracle. Should we be concerned at what point of this financing really is the undercurrent in the marketplace?
Yeah, there's a lot of demand right now for these bond offerings, right? The oversubscription, my eyes just popped,
Yes.
10 times. That's crazy. But again, like I know these big tech companies, they've lost their cult-like status. But at the end of the day, the oversubscription kind of shows to us that, investors haven't completely given up on these big tech players yet. And I think that's a really good sign for the broader market because there's such an outsized portion of the market. If they don't rally, how hard is it for the broader market to keep pushing to all-time highs? And right now with the software stumble, I'm really thinking about that.
When you went back and looked, did it make you come away from it? Because I love hearing about the stories we've forgotten about. I wish I could do a whole series of like the news we've forgotten, right? The Disney one you
could do
mentioned
that.
is so fabulous.
That was in the 90s.
Does it make you look back and think, you know what, these companies should have been more aggressive because all of these concerns were overblown? Or does it make you think, no, I mean, these typically were the signs of a business model at its peak and they didn't see that the cliff was coming?
That's a great question. I think that, yes, some of them should have had the oversight. For example, JCPenney, they also had a 100-year bond offering back in the late 90s.
Wow.
And guess what? They went bankrupt 23 years later. So the bondholders for the 100-year bond, they got nothing out of this.
Ooh, wait. JCPenney. What is the JCPenney's what is they phrase that they use? I don't remember shopping at JCPenney's. You ain't gonna embarrass me. I never did it. Absolutely not. I was too good for JCPenney's. Absolutely. Yeah, but turns out if the company ain't around, then you don't get paid. Yeah, if the company ain't around, you don't get paid. That's all I need from that video. I just want you guys to understand it, right? The company ain't around, you don't get paid. Now, let's get into the more overall message that I'm trying to convey. With this 100-year bond, and it's not completely 100 years for all of the bonds, people. It's I think it's predominantly the one in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a whole video breakdown on how it actually is broken down and all that kind of stuff. We could watch it if you want. I could find it. But the point being is that JCPenney's, they went out of business. And I'm sure they went bankrupt and they got sold for pennies. The irony. The irony of your company been named JCPenney's and you getting sold for pennies. Pennies on the dollars. The bigger point is this. The investor is the UK government. Why is that important? Why is the investor the UK government? It's in sterling, right? And sterling is the sterling pound, British pound, people that know it. We can get into some more complex stuff, but just remember that. Why is that important? And I'm going to tell you why. And the people that purchase these bonds are usually like pension funds and things like that. So it's a way to get safe. So, for example, if you are somebody that works for a company and your risk tolerance is, I don't want to be invested in equities because they're too risky, well, they'll put some bonds in your particular portfolio, and they'll go out and purchase them and all this type of stuff, and then they'll package them. They'll put them in like this fund and package them to people. But anyway, the point being is this. So retirees and people that all this type of stuff is betting on Alphabet being around in 100 years. Now that's significantly important when the government gets involved, right? Because it doesn't mean the government can't lose. It just means the people that you are tied to the success and outcome is the government. And in a lot of countries, that's a good thing. In a lot of countries, the government really run things, and that's kind of helpful. But the bigger point of it is the UK, they love to find Google. The EU, they love to find Google. They love to find them. So when you start tying your success financially to their financial outcomes of decisions, you start to become aligned, right? And that word aligned is very, very important. It's very important for many, many, many reasons. And and I find this to be an excellent strategy of Alphabet, their ability to generate mass money. Give me this money. Hey, can I get this money early? It's like getting paid. It's like you going to your boss and say, hey, I ain't worked yet for you, but I'm gonna work these next 2 weeks. Just give me my check right now. And don't charge me no interest for about a year. So like, meaning you're gonna give me all this money up front, thank you. And don't charge me no interest until about a year. I'll pay you back in a year. It's compounding that, right? So anyway, point being, it's the tying of it to the outcome of the success, right? And so I want to go to a bigger scale of it when we talk about music, catalog, things like that. I want to talk about what are you guys' thoughts about people selling their music catalog? I think I read recently Wiz Khalifa sold his catalog. I know Lil Wayne sold his catalog. Who else did it? A couple of Future sold his catalog. And a couple of other prominent names also did so. So now with the selling of that, it can mean different things. You can sell individual songs, group them together, masters, publishing rights, all those things. The point of it is this. It's all about the terms, right? It's all about the terms, okay? So a lot of people get confused, right, when they hear billionaires take out loans and they pay back the loans with another loan. They often get confused by that. They're like, wait, how you take out a loan and then you pay off the loan? Well, it's very, very simple. When me and you take out a loan, well, they're not usually favorable terms, right? Meaning, at minimum, they're going to charge us. Well, some of y'all rich as hell, so not all of y'all, but broke people like me, they're going to probably charge me, let's just say a personal loan. I don't know. Terms matter. So contracts matter, terms matter, right? Remember, you can negotiate a lot of these things. And sometimes if you have leverage, you can negotiate things that are more favorable than the average person, right? So when these billionaires take out these loans and then they take out more loans and more, it's the whole borrow until you die borrow thing, right? Because what you don't know is when you borrow money, and then you die. Well, how that money is owed is very interesting. When you borrow money and then you die, and how that money owed is very interesting. That's why as you get older, you realize they don't like to lend to your grandparents very much because your grandparents, they used to be smart. See, what they do is they go ahead and just take out a whole bunch of loans before they pass away and give them to their kids. Oh, yeah, I just took out this $25,000 loan. Here goes this $25,000 for you. And then they just go in and die off, and then the loan dies with them. Especially at the time when they was doing those unsecured. Oh, my gosh. We talking unsecured? Oh, don't worry. The banks learned their lesson. They don't do that. They don't let you get away with that no more. But that used to be the thing. And it still can happen on a low level now, but that used to be the thing. So with that being said, they borrow money. This is what they do. They borrow money and they securitize it against their asset. It's very different from a non-securitized loan versus a securitized loan, right? So if you go out and you take a personal loan for $25,000, I just want you to know that, right? You take out a personal loan for $25K. You don't have to pledge assets, right? So you take a loan for $25,000. If you go into any bank in general, you probably could get a personal loan. Now, how much they're willing to loan you is a bunch of different factors that go into that, right? But you don't have to usually securitize it against anything for the most part. You can if you set up terms, but a lot of people are able to go out and they're able to acquire a loan that is not secure. Most of your credit cards are like that, for example. Most of you guys have unsecured credit cards, meaning you don't have to pledge or put up any of your assets in order to acquire the access to credit, aka debt. But when you filthy rich, you may securitize your loan with $50 billion in assets. Hey, I like to pledge my 50 billion asset, and I would like a loan for 1% of 50 billion. Now, one of y'all in here, y'all smarter than me, y'all can do the math on what 1% of 50 billion is. Right? If you do that, you run the math on that, you can probably get favorable terms. In most cases, you can probably secure a loan at 1% or less if you're the ultra wealthy. And that's why they do it. And then, to simplify it, they make favorable terms and then they put it in a balloon style loan, meaning at the end of the terms, a balloon payment is due. That means a huge 3-4 times the size of payment is due at the end of the terms. And what you do is, while you're taking that loan, you're paying minimal amounts all throughout it. When you get to the end of it, you go, I like to take another loan out, and then you pay back that old loan, you pay that off, and you're in a new one. So if you took one for 1% last time, just take one for 2% this time. Then you go and pay off that 1%, and that's the game that they play. Now, we ain't getting no favorable terms like that. I really wish we could, but we ain't getting no favorable terms like that. But that's the game that they play on that, right? That's the game that they play on that. So do not get a loan from a loan shark. So let me tie all this, put this into perspective. So now to jump back into perspective of music catalog. It's something that I want people to understand is one of the reasons why I think stocks, business, partnerships are so interesting to me, and why investing in strategies are so important to success and outcome, right? So a lot of times we don't realize that everything that we do, everything around us, right, is business. Everything that we see, everything is business, right? And so a lot of celebrities, musicians, etc., when they sell their music catalog or when they give up their so-called ownership, a lot of people get mad because then they say, oh, see, you don't own that. If your kids own, you could have given that to your kids and all these things, right? But these are tough decisions to make. Very, very tough decisions to make, because how you value something is hard to determine if it's worth maintaining ownership or if it's worth releasing the ownership of it, right? So when I was a lot younger, right, I would see these things. Oh, such and such sells their catalog, and I'd be like, why would you give up your ownership, man? This is how they keep getting us. It would bother me a lot more, right? And ownership does matter, but it would bother me a lot. And then I start to study more about business, and I start to elevate and evolve my mindset to be more understanding. And then I realized the game that goes on to play, right? And there's this old clip, right, from one of the more prominent, because remember, it's business. One of the more prominent musicians, artists of our time. And they have, I don't know if the clip went viral, but they spoke about something that I think is important when it comes to business, and so how sometimes our minds are so warped on what business actually is, what good business is, good decision making, ownership, and all that. That sometimes we make these mistakes. So think about it. I used to think this: if I loan you 10,000, you need to bring me back 20,000. I swear to God, I don't know where I learned that from. I used to think, like, man, if I give you 10, you're gonna have to give me. If I loan you $10,000, you're gonna have to bring me back 20. If I give you 5,000, I want 10. I want to double my money. But when I started learning about investing, I was like, oh boy, was I wrong. 7% return is great. Double-digit return, phenomenal. Just give me 7% on my money. And the less riskier the situation is, the better. It's just you start to learn things and you start to learn things, right? So that prominent musician that we all know has gone on to be one of the better businessmen, at least what we've come to see and know. And there's a couple notable people we could talk about. Nas has been doing his thing in business. If y'all ain't been following a lot of the investments he's been doing, Chameleonaire, it's a lot of people that's been doing their thing. But this particular person, his name is Jay-Z, aka Sean Carter. Okay, and he did an interview years back, and he talked about the idea of, I own everything. It's all mine. I own 100% of that. I'm the boss, right? And he talked a little bit about that breakdown.
Steve Jobs owned 1% of Apple. I mean, now 1% of a $3 trillion company, right? But if you look at his percentage, you're like 1%. Ha. So, we've been trained to look at the percentage of something you own, right? We have to get it. It ain't what you own. You can own 100% of nothing. It's whatever the strategy calls for. Like Ace, LVMH was a brilliant strategic partner for me. We were lucky to find the Cartiers who've been in the business since the 1800s. Like there's no one that looks like us in champagne. We've done something really amazing and got the attention of one of the most prestigious brands, right? And it was like a beautiful marriage. Like I owned 100%. I could have said, I want to own 100% of this thing. Or I can own 50% of it and take this and push it even further, right? That was right for that specific situation. Again, I own 50% of it. So it's still an asset that I can pass down to my kids. Steve Jobs.
Now, why is that? It's actually something that made Jay-Z stick out to a lot of people and really go, oh, he really knows a little bit more about business than we actually thought. See, Jeff Bezos, I think he might own maybe 10% of Amazon, maybe. I don't know the exact number. Somebody can look that up for me. And I'm going to tie all this conversation today about the bonds and why the government tied to the bond purchase and all that, why all that stuff matters, right? Here's the thing that matters in business. What you have found is almost nobody has got extremely rich from owning 100% of anything. Almost nobody. Almost nobody. What you'll find is that what they do is they incentivize their success. They incentivize their success. And what that means is the more people I get vested, right? So for example, you got a retirement account, you have a corporation that will typically match your investment, whatever, 6%, 12%, 25%, whatever it is, right? They'll say, all right, you come work for us. We'll match up to this percent. But there's a vesting period. There is a vesting period. And what that means is, yo, you come to my company. If you stay for usually the vesting period is usually like a year or 3 years. It's always a battle. But if you leave any time before that, you forfeit that money and it all comes back to the company. So if the vesting period was 5 years, and you have been putting money into this for 4 years and you leave, you forfeit. And everything you forfeit goes back to the company. Now, why is this important? What you'll learn is that when it comes to enterprise, as Jay-Z said, you can own 100% of nothing. Or you can realize, if I own less and I give equity to people that are strategic partners, that have better infrastructure, that can do more than what I can do, it's smarter. It's smarter. That's all. So I think there's what's his name? I think Grant Cardone said this. And there's been other, I think he said it, right? I think he said he owns like $1 billion in debt, or he has like $2 billion in debt, something crazy, right? And I don't know if it was him, it could have been somebody else, but I remember just talking about it. And what you'll find is that if he defaults on any of his billions of dollars of loans, that's an issue for the people that loaned him the money, aka the banks. If you default on your credit card, they don't care. They don't care. Oh, yeah, you defaulted on credit. We're going to charge you a fee, a late fee, all that good stuff. If he does, that's $2 billion to the bottom line. That's a problem. It ain't just Grant Cardone that has the problem. We got a problem. Hey, my name's Grant. Hey, I got an issue going on. You guys, I'm going to need some help here. Well, what you need, Grant? We here to support you. We got a lot of vested interest on your outcome. And so what I'm saying is that the more people that are invested in something, the outcome starts to be projected. Meaning, if the government has an invested interest on a company, they're likely to want to incentivize the success and the outcome of that company being successful because it's tied to them. This is why they typically try to segregate government and corporations, because there's a murky line there when you start to be incentivized. If you look at Intel stock, right? The second the executive branch decided that they were going to get influence in that, the stock jumped back up. It literally Favor said Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah, Robert Kiyosaki. One of them said, I don't know, but shout out to Robert Kiyosaki. It might have been him. As you know, I listen to a lot of stuff. I read a lot of stuff, right? But you have to look at it. Their outcome will be then tied. And the we got a problem is very important. So the same thing then becomes when you look at getting a partner. Strategic partners can make you a lot more money than you would have made by yourself. And there's too much ego placed in it. I'm a boss. But I'll simplify it for you on even the lowest scale that we all can even participate. Let's just say that when you go to a 7-Eleven, right? And let's say it's franchise owned. Do you know a lot of these business owners work in the business? And the reason that they work in the business is because it would cost them a lot of money to hire a manager. But most of y'all don't want to own a 7-Eleven because y'all don't want to work there. Y'all be like, yeah, if I own a 7-Eleven, I'm going to just own it. I'm going to just own the 7-Eleven and then I'm going to hire a bunch of people to work for me. Well, that's going to cut into your profits. You don't even understand where your profit margins are. You don't even understand the neighborhood that you be selling in. You don't have no knowledge of that, and you already saying what you would do. No, you probably gonna be working in the business because you won't be able to generate enough money. You'd have to own so many of them that you could then take yourself out of the business and just operate it in a management style. Well, you have to look at it. Well, if I just give up some of my ownership to, I don't know, who else owns shares of Amazon? Some banks? Who else owns shares of Google? I don't know. T. Rowe Price? I don't know. Charles Schwab? I don't know. All of the financial arms? Their success is tied to them. Go look at all of the biggest companies look at Amazon, look at the Metas, look at all of them and see what institutional owners own them. You dang right they want you to have an iPhone. Hey, y'all got that nice new iPhone that came out? Mm-hmm. It's a vested interest. That's what partnership is. That's what partnership is. Yeah, shout out to Omni. Ironically enough, the money is made in the contracts when it comes to the gas stations, right? So, good friend of mine, he's really close with a gas station owner that owns a bunch of them, and they talk about the contracts and whatever you procured that either gas price, oil price, whatever it is, that agreement that you have in the contract, that price and the fluctuation and the differences of the output is where you're going to be making your money at. So you got that contract from years ago and you got a certain number and then you can sell it to the consumers for a certain, that flexibility is there. So the new contracts might hurt you depending on where the prices are, but the old contracts is why you really bubbling. And so it continues to be that kind of like that type of business for the people that are at the top running those. But I'm just saying, I just look at it as all partnerships. Joint ventures is a term to use. Go ahead and tie more people to your success. The more people that you have vying for your success, the more likely you are to be successful. The more people that want you to win, and then they have a vested interest in you winning, the odds of you winning is much higher. And so when it comes to marketing, they try to ingrain themselves in your everyday life, right? They try to find a way, how can I just touch you every day and give you a hug and be in your life every single day? This is why Apple has such a monopoly around their product. Because nobody leaves the house without their phone no more. If you leave the house without your phone, you're coming back to get it. I guarantee it. You coming back, I got to go back and get my phone. That's just how it works. So they're embedded in your day-to-day life. So everything that they touch, they now are valuable to everybody else. Advertisers, they're valuable to them because the consumer, the number one resource, which is people, they are embedded in your day-to-day life. That's what all these companies try to do. Think about it. Daily coffee. The concept of, get your daily coffee. Like, even creating that concept is crazy. Oh yeah, you should where do you get your coffee from every day? Even that sentence, if you think about it, where do you get your coffee from every day? Meaning you drink coffee every day. Not something that you have to do. You just do it. And so now when they promote something, they put it in your mind and condition you that let's normalize that. Drinking coffee every day is good for you. Drinking coffee every day now embeds me into your day-to-day process. Now you can't do nothing without having some coffee. So think about anything that is embedded into our day-to-day lives. there's a huge likelihood of the success. Myri says with points. So you have to really understand that, right? That's how I look at investing, right? Like getting rich alone, a lot of people, when they say getting rich alone, is very lonely. Getting rich with all your boys, that's why everybody be homies. They can compete, but everybody's still best friends. That's billionaires' role. They all live amongst each other. You can't live amongst the people that you hate. That's hard. They all cool with each other because that's why they end up becoming friends. If you look at, no, I shouldn't use that one. That would be a trigger there. But if you look at how people become friends, they're like, oh yeah, I met such and such. You don't want to be rich alone. And so investing, strategic decisions become that outcome. It's like, yo, I don't need 100% of anything. I just need to be a partner. I don't want to own 100% of Amazon because that company will not go very far with me owning 100% of it. You get some, you get this percentage, you get this. What you good at? Oh, I'm good at this. That's why companies give out equity position to their employees. I'm the chief engineer for I don't know, cloud computing at my company. You think they just pay him a salary? They give, hey, we got some shares for you. All the CEOs, every single last one of them is heavily tied to compensation investing. You get if you can get this done, we tied together. That's kind of how life is. And so make sure our minds are not so caught up in owning 100% of your music catalog. Because if Lil Wayne got 100 M's, that's probably more than he would have been able to make with his assets. That's what y'all got to understand. Infrastructure matters. There was a very polarizing artist that sells shoes that was trying to figure out how to get to factories. And he went on Sway in the morning and was like, you ain't got the answer, Sway. You don't know what I've been through. You ain't spent $25 million trying to figure this out. He ain't got the infrastructure. And the people that is willing to spend $100 million to acquire your rights to, because what happens is this, right? Let me just give you an example. Let's just say I own a film company. And let's just say, for example, we just using examples here, just get your mind wrapped around it. Let's just say whoever created Friends, the TV hitcom series Friends, let's just say they're my let's just say they're close friends of mine, right? And I say, man, we just sitting there talking at dinner sometime. We talking about how to make more money. And I say, you know what? You should start your next episode with this music. Well, what music? Give me 1 second. Hey, Wiz Khalifa, that's those songs that you made. I really, really like them. Just go ahead and sell the rights to me, and I'll give you X amount of dollars. Cool, no problem. Then I go to my friend. Hey, so yeah, I got this music. Just go ahead and incorporate it for me. I would appreciate it. And in contrast, I'll put you on the board of one of my companies, or I don't know, one of my nonprofits. I'll put your niece on it. I'll put your niece on the board or something like that. I appreciate your help. And now when that show goes on, and every time either Hulu or Netflix has to license to play Friends or whatever the case from, and that song appears in there, I had to call my homie to get that song on there. I get paid. My homie gets paid. Wiz Khalifa couldn't get that song on there, though. He don't have the infrastructure to get that song on there. He just don't. He don't have the ability to do that. He's taken the business as far as he can as an artist. They are not business people. And even when they become business people, they don't have the infrastructure that the businesses that already have laid the foundation for years to essentially lock everybody out. Yeah, you can't get one of the most independent artists, La Russell from the Bay. Shout out to La Russell. He just signed with Rock Nation. People calling him a sellout. How? How is creating a partnership, a joint venture, whatever you want to call it, in a way to take yourself farther than you can, because you done everything you possibly can. You stuck. How is that selling out? What's the purpose? And what's the purpose of it? And we'll say we'll tie it to this. Most of the richest people you know, personally read about or exist on the planet right now, have sold the business before. They sold the business. Somebody else bought it from them. Music is business. You built up a catalog, you built up a business, and you sold it. The money is in the selling, not in the owning. And you can always build another business. Prime example is the people that are, and this is not the exact example of like building another business, but if you look at what's going on between Anthropic and what's going on with OpenAI, people that used to work at OpenAI left and went to go build Anthropic and whatnot, and now they have a competing business. You can sell that business that you built up and go make another one. There's some really famous brothers, actually, that is exactly what they do. They go copy a business legally and sell it. And I know some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I don't know their names on the top of my head or whatnot, but that's literally all they do. They go find a business model, duplicate it legally, compete, and get and make you buy them. And they reduplicate this process all the time. You go make out another company. So don't get too caught up in the I need to own everything and I'm the boss and I'm boss this, because when you have that Dame Dash mentality, sorry, I just had to throw him under the bus real quick because he a little rude. And he lack a certain skill set in some area. And I know y'all love Dame Dash. Dame is a real one. He stood up for people. That's cool. But if you don't evolve and adjust and have the ability to, those same people that you stepped on getting to the top will be there to step on you when you fall down. That's just the facts. Y'all can say Jay-Z should give him money. No, he ain't got to do that because he a boss. But anyway, point being is, that's kind of harsh. Don't get caught up on I'm the boss. I own everything. Don't get caught up on that. Look at the numbers. Look at what make business sense to do. Because if Jeff Bezos wanted to own 100% of Amazon, he would not be where he was at. He won't be where he's at into this day and age because he won't have the engineers that he needed. He won't have none of the people that he put in place, the technology. He won't have none of those people's their minds to help continue to build the business. He won't have them. He won't have none of those people. I hate to tell you, it just is what it is. Now, I totally forgot, and that's my apologies. Everything that I wanted to share with you guys today, because I try to write some of it down, but it gets hard. Okay, it really, really does get hard. But I got a lot of my thoughts out with you guys and shared them with you. But the whole thing is now, just remember that the whole point of business is to generate revenue and generate profit in most cases. But it's to get the most that you can out of that enterprise. And so if that means having a partnership with somebody else, sharing in your success, in creating that, don't hesitate to do it. And look, Hov said it too. Y'all saying y'all made Hov. Okay, make another one. It's another good point. You can make another business. You done one, you done it, you done it again and again. That's just how I look at it. All right. Now, I'm definitely behind. I'm behind on time. Dang. Don't y'all hate when y'all don't have infinite time the way that you want it? But this was a good conversation. This was a good talk. I was able to get this out. Because I see this I see this happening all the time. And I'm just glad, like, when I see this stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that means. And I can see this. I don't want to talk about Tesla today. I don't want to talk about Tesla and Elon and how he ain't a car company, but all he actually sells is cars. I don't want to get into that today. I just want y'all to make sure that when y'all making these decisions, y'all assessing these outcomes, really, really study these things. Go, who's tied to our success? Who else has ownership in this company? Who else gets to win if I win? You know, just look at stuff like that. There are a lot of people that's around. You know somebody that owns a clothing company. I mean, you know, you could be partnering with them. You know somebody that I know somebody. He's been working on. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it because it's a little complex for me, right? But he's working on like a water company, right? And the technology that he's developing is so interesting to me. Is to compete with the companies that produce it in plastic bottles and whatnot. And you know what? I'm gonna have a conversation with him again just so I can get better understanding, right? But a lot of his partnerships that he has, he has these deals where they're inside of airports, right? I need to go back and just follow up with him because it's just very complicated to me, right? But it's just like there are a lot of people around you that have ideas that are trying to execute on something that are just getting the start in on that, and you could be a strategic partner to them. You might have something of value to offer them. Anyways, guys, I have to stop rambling because I got somewhere to go. But I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope you enjoyed the show for Sunday. I know y'all got a lot of other stuff that y'all gonna get into today and have some fun doing that. And so because I'm enjoying this again, I will be back next week. Okay, I will be back next week. Look, Tom said he said the airport water costs too much. Yes, well, he's not selling that water to you at the airport. Yeah, that's not the technology that he's working on. Those are the people that already have their infrastructure laid. He has investors, very big name investors, but I can't really say, right? Because I can't afford to get him in trouble. And because I'm sure he has some non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that, he probably can't even talk about. So I don't even want to say, but I'll tell you, it's big money investors. Okay, big money investors, and we'll say that for a different show when I get better information of how I can explain it better next time. Anyway, guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I will be back again to try to do this again, to try to have a conversation again. Okay. So I appreciate you guys' support. Thank y'all for being here. Enjoy the rest of y'all day. And I'll see you guys soon. And until the next time,